our satiric reviews. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it.
I hate this channel.
Hey there, I'm Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso. And a lot of the time on this channel we talk about wrestling. And there was no time more exciting to be a wrestling fan than in the mid to late 90s. The wrestling world was on fire with two of the biggest companies in wrestling history, the then WWF and the WCW, competing every Monday night for ratings. If you didn't grow up in this era, you missed out on clenching onto your remote and flipping back and forth during commercial breaks between TNT and the USA Network. A good portion of the blank VHS tapes that were in my house at the time were filled with NWO segments, followed by me channel surfing back to watch what Stone Cold was doing that week. Hell, sometimes if I was lucky, I was able to record one show in my room and another in the living room, if no one else was using it. Now this was rare, but I remember afterward it feeling like Christmas. This was must-see TV that was scheduled during the same time frame. Mondays became fun days. And wow, I don't even have kids, and I'm already making dad jokes. I need to stop. It needs to stop. I'm gonna get help, I promise you guys. This was an amazing time to be a wrestling fan. Arguably the greatest time to be a wrestling fan, because the intense competition between the two rivaling companies made the shows entirely unpredictable. No one ever knew who was gonna jump ship, who was leaving, who was returning. And I can think of no better example than the night that Rick Rude appeared in two places, actually 3 places depending on what your cable provider was and where you were living. You see, during this time, WCW put on a live show where the WWF decidedly did not. They'd usually film their shows about a week or so in advance. Now, Rick Rude was a former wrestler and future legend at the time. He had made a legacy for himself by playing the self-involved heel and heartthrob. I mean, just look at the guy. He looks like every late 80s, early 90s male porn star. Who could blame him? I mean, just look at the stash on this guy. He could make Ron Burgundy jealous. I mean, I'm not gay or anything, but for him, I might be. I don't know.
Pause. You said something gay, so you gotta say no homo.
Rick Rude would become both a WWF Intercontinental Champion and a WCW United States Champion, and a 3-time WCW International World Champion. The belt history is complicated. I don't want to get too deep into it with you. He was even named the Wrestling Observer newsletter Best Heel in 1992. His successful tenures with the companies came to a halt when he was injured, winning his last international championship in a match against Sting. Despite this, he stuck around the wrestling world as a personality, a manager, a bodyguard, and a valet. In 1997, Rude, now working for the WWF, was paired with Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chyna as the first incarnation of D-Generation X, one of the most illustrious groups in sports entertainment. He was brought in as the group's insurance policy, basically playing Shawn Michaels' bodyguard. He was the guy employed to take care of business. And to solidify this, he walked around with the briefcase. Look at that. That's proof. That's proof right there. And keep in mind, this was pre-Money in the Bank matches, so that guy's just going to be walking around with that for a while. He's got no one to cash it in on. Rude didn't really take a liking to Shawn or Hunter behind the scenes, and vice versa. I mean, they didn't necessarily hate each other, but they'd only speak to go over whatever they needed to say in promos. Rude took a disliking to Shawn, especially once going out of his way to label him the Pecan instead of the Icon on TV.
The showstopper, the Pecan of the World Wrestling Federation.
The Pecan?
Oops, sorry. The Icon!
It's a jokey joke, yeah?
What's notable about Rude's deal with the company is he wasn't locked down to a full-time contract. He was on a pay-per-appearance kind of deal. And this deal would backfire majorly on the company shortly into his run. Following the Montreal Screwjob, an event which I've either already or will soon cover on this channel in full detail, Rude took exception to the company's perceived lack of respect to Bret Hart, and feeling that they were in the wrong, he overnight made a deal with WCW. On November 17, 1997, on Nitro, Hollywood Hogan and Eric Bischoff, looking extra smug that night, entered announcing the newest member of the NWO, Rick Rude. Look at that chick. Look at this chick in the audience over here. She knows what's up. She knows how big this is.
Rick Rude? When you look coming out of the woodwork.
Oh, what a difference a day makes. The rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
Where he proceeded to throw so much shade at the competition that by the end of his promo, the WWF was engulfed in darkness. He down-talked his former employer, Vince McMahon.
What's wrong is for Vince McMahon to ring the bell or to rob Bret Hart of his title.
The company he just up and left, the WWF,
What's right is for Bret Hart to abandon the Titanic and swim to the refuge of the NWO.
and even DX themselves.
What's wrong in wrestling is Shawn Michaels claiming to be world champion when he never beat Bret Hart. The NWO to beat the living Shut your mouth! Out of the man called Sting. What's right is NWO's course to destruct WCW. Give it up for Ravishing Rick Rude!
Only to then, a short while later, appear on WWF's pre-taped programming that night, aiding DX as they attacked Commissioner Sergeant Slaughter.
What? That's Rick Rude.
It's time for the Generation X! I got news for you, Ken Shamrocks. DX. I got news for you, Ken Shamrocks. DX.
Yes! Slaughter hit him again. Slaughter's not going to take it anymore. He just got nailed by Hood Guts. He's paying for it.
What's really interesting here is that the WWF didn't have him signed to a full-time exclusive contract because they didn't have long-term plans for Rude. And it's clear by the way his first appearance was built up and his following appearances were kind of played down that WCW didn't have any big plans for him either. This needed that one sucker punch to the WWF, and that's it. Money well spent. Regardless, this was a huge pat on the back of WCW and a slap in the face of the WWF. This made WCW look ingenious by putting WWF in the corner with a dunce cap on. A historical moment nonetheless. And just to reiterate here, not only did Rick Rude manage to appear on both WWF's Raw's War and WCW Monday Nitro, but he also on the same night was a member of DX and the NWO. The same night. Part of two of the biggest heel groups in all of wrestling history. That's unheard of. That's one of those moments where you wouldn't be able to believe it had it not been caught on camera. I can't believe nobody talks about this anymore. I mean, yes, this was 20 years ago, but come on. The guy was on 2 feuding programs, 2 mega feds, and at that, in 2 of the most iconic rebellious stables of all time, all in one night. That's insane. But wait, because the story gets even more crazy, and this is the part that usually gets lost in translation, Rick Rude also appeared on ECW, the 3rd biggest wrestling company around that time, the same night that Nitro and Raw aired. Rick Rude managed to be on all 3 major promotions within 24 hours. And allow me to remind you, he was no longer an active wrestler. He was simply a wrestling personality. And still, his star shined so bright, it could be seen no matter what part of the wrestling night sky you were looking up at. Rick Rude, man. What a legend.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're watching the social injustice warrior, V Infuso's channel, dude. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to get updates and notifications. Ooh, tell him what up, Mach. Ooh, yeah. Follow the man on Twitter, yeah, because we all know it's not stalking if it's on the internet, yeah. Join the madness by joining the Discord, and if you have a moment of time and a free $1 to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, dig it, where you can request videos, get exclusive videos, and early access to content, yeah. Or go down to PayPal, where you can buy the shirts, brother. But most importantly, just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
Say, why you gotta be so